Welcome to the deep dive. We sort through the sources to give you the essential knowledge and maybe some surprising insights you need to feel truly informed.
And today, we are diving into a case that really shook the country, the Idaho college murders.
Yeah, it was just a horrific crime. It completely shattered the peace of this small, normally quiet college town, grabbed national headlines instantly,
Yeah.
threw the whole community into, well, disarray.
Absolutely. In Moscow, Idaho. I mean, they hadn't had a murder there since 2015, so this was just such a massive shock, really undermined the whole town's sense of safety.
Right.
So our goal today for you listening is to carefully unpack the factual timeline, look at the incredibly complex investigation that followed, the recent legal stuff that brought a conclusion, and also, importantly, the lasting impact.
Exactly. We want to trace how a case like this unfolds, from that initial shocking confusion all the way to the final outcome. And everything we discuss is drawn directly from the sources we've gathered.
So let's set the scene. We're talking about Moscow, Idaho, and specifically an off-campus house at 1122 King Road.
Okay.
It was a 3-story house, pretty big actually, 6 bedrooms, 2 entrances, and 5 female University of Idaho students live there.
Gotcha. And the living situation, how is that set up?
Well, pretty standard for college kids, really. 3rd floor, you had Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogan. Kaylee had actually moved out already, but she was back visiting, staying in Madison's room that weekend.
Okay.
Then the 2nd floor, that's where the kitchen was, and also the bedrooms for Xana Kernodle and one of the roommates who survived, Xana's boyfriend, Ethan Chapin. He was staying over with her that night.
Right.
And then the 1st floor, that was where the other surviving roommate lived.
So the 4 victims,
Mhm.
Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Madison Mogan, all so young.
Terribly young. Ethan was 20, a sophomore Sigma Chi guy.
Mhm.
Kaylee, 21, a senior in Alpha Phi. And Xana, 20, a junior, and Madison, 21, a senior. They were both in Pi Beta Phi. It just paints this picture of, vibrant college life. And then this.
Yeah, just suddenly and brutally ended. So let's look at the timeline. November 13th, 2022. What do we know about that night?
Well, the sources confirm that all 5 roommates plus Ethan were back at the house by 2 a.m.
Okay.
Ethan and Xana got back from a Sigma Chi party around 1:45 a.m. And Madison and Kaylee, they returned from a sports bar downtown, stopped at a food truck, and got home about 1:56 a.m.
And there was that detail about the phone calls, right?
Yeah.
Kind of unsettling.
Yeah, really unsettling. Between about 2:26 and 2:52 a.m., Kaylee's phone made 7 calls unanswered. And Madison's phone made 3 calls, also unanswered, all to Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, a long-term one apparently.
And the police looked into him.
Oh, yeah, extensively, and they completely cleared him. But it does show activity, someone awake just hours before the attack happened.
And we know Xana Kernodle was definitely awake closer to the time.
That's right, that's a key point. She got a DoorDash delivery around 4 a.m.
Wow, that late.
Yeah. And then she was using TikTok on her phone at 4:12 a.m. So active on her phone, literally moments before the estimated time the attacks began.
Which brings us to the account from Dylan Mortensen, one of the surviving roommates. It's just harrowing.
It really is. She was asleep in her room, 2nd floor, woke up hearing noise from the 3rd floor, said she thought maybe it was Kaylee playing with her dog at first.
Okay.
But then she heard one of the roommates, say, "There's someone here." Dylan thought it was Kaylee, but investigators, they think it might actually have been Xana.
And then she heard crying.
Yes, crying, she said, from Xana's room. So she opened her door again and then heard this unfamiliar male voice say something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you."
Chilling. And there's audio captured nearby, too.
Yeah, security cameras nearby picked up sounds around 4:17 a.m., whimpering, a loud thud, and then a dog barking right in that window.
Just terrifying to piece together. So Mortensen opens her door again. A 3rd time.
A 3rd time. And she sees this figure, masked, dressed all in black, walk right past her door towards the back of the house and leave through the sliding glass door in the kitchen area.
Wow. Just feet away.
Exactly. She described herself as being in a, quote, frozen shock phase. Then she went back into her room and locked the door.
And she didn't come out immediately.
No.
Uh-uh.
It wasn't until about 4:26 a.m., according to the timeline, that she went downstairs. That's when she saw Xana Kernodle on the floor.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Then she found the other surviving roommate, Bethany Funk, and they locked themselves in a bedroom together for hours.
Which explains the delay in the 911 call.
It does. When police finally arrived, after that call came in much later, they found the 4 victims stabbed to death in their beds.
Madison and Kaylee on the 3rd floor. in Madison's room, and Xana and Ethan on the second floor in Xana's room.
That's right. And the scene was incredibly brutal. Xana had over 50 stab wounds. Kaylee had more than 20.
It's horrific.
Yeah. No signs they were gagged or tied up, blood spatter on the walls, and defensive wounds on at least one victim, suggesting, a desperate fight.
And the estimated time for all this? Just 25 minutes. Between 4 Prudhoe and 4:25 a.m.
That's the window investigators pinpointed, which makes the delay in the 911 call even more striking.
Right. It wasn't until 11:58 a.m.
That's so what?
Over 7 hours later.
Over 7 hours. And the call itself, made from Bethany Funk's phone, was reporting an unconscious person.
Which also probably added to the initial confusion.
Likely. When police got there, the door was open, no forced entry, nothing seemed stolen, and Kaylee's dog found alive, completely unharmed, on the 3rd floor.
Just bizarre. So the initial response?
Yeah.
How did the authorities in the university handle that? There must have been panic.
Oh, absolutely. Huge anxiety. The university canceled classes. They planned a vigil, but even that got postponed because of fear and maybe weather, too.
And the police messaging shifted a bit.
It did. At first, it was sort of no ongoing risk, but then the police chief, Chief Fry, had to walk that back and say, we cannot say there is no threat.
Which must have terrified people.
It did. It led to this big exodus. Students left, residents left town. Some professors even canceled classes because campus felt so empty and unsafe.
And this is where the whole social media storm kicked off, right?
Yeah, it really highlights a modern problem. You had the victims' fathers publicly criticizing, understandably, the lack of information from the police.
Right. They wanted answers.
Of course. But then that vacuum gets filled online. TikTokers, people claiming to be psychics, armchair detectives, they all just jumped in, spreading rumors, misinformation.
Yeah.
It got pretty wild.
Creating this whole other narrative that the police then had to deal with.
Exactly. Moscow PD actually had to put out statements telling people to stop, criticizing the rumors for making things worse, for scaring people, and potentially hindering the real investigation.
A tough balancing act for them.
Definitely. They stressed they couldn't just release every detail without compromising the case. They even warned people about potential charges if they harassed others based on online speculation.
So the actual investigation.
Yeah.
Huge effort, right? MPD, state police, FBI.
And massive. Nearly 130 people involved at its peak. Autopsies confirmed it was homicide, stabbing, with a large fixed-blade knife, but no weapon found at the scene.
And no sexual assault.
No signs of sexual assault. The reports confirm that. And that description from the surviving roommate was crucial.
The description of the man she saw.
Yeah. Male, about 5'10", athletic build, but not like super muscular, and distinctive bushy eyebrows.
Tips were pouring in.
Thousands. Calls, emails, digital files. The public really wanted to help. Early on, the police were saying it seemed like a targeted attack, either the house itself or maybe specific people living there.
There was that stalker theory about Kaylee Goncalves, too.
Right. There was a tip about that. It was investigated thoroughly, but police said it wasn't verified and ultimately wasn't connected to the person they eventually arrested.
Okay. Then came the focus on the car. The white Elantra.
Yes, that became a huge focus. Investigators found surveillance footage showing a light-colored sedan-style car, which they later identified as likely a Hyundai Elantra, model year 2011 to 2013 initially.
And it was near the house around the time of the murders.
Multiple times. Seen making passes near the house starting around 3:29 a.m., then again at 4:04 a.m., and crucially, seen speeding away from the area at 4:20 a.m.
That pattern, 3 passes before, then speeding away right after the likely time frame. That sounds very deliberate.
It certainly suggests premeditation, reconnaissance maybe. It adds another layer of chilling calculation to the whole thing.
And this car led them to Brian Koberger.
Eventually, yes. The investigation zeroed in on Brian Christopher Koberger. He was 28, a PhD student, and also a TA in criminology at Washington State University.
It was really close by.
Less than 8 miles from Moscow, yeah. And he owned a white Hyundai Elantra. Turned out to be a slightly later model year than they first thought, but it matched the descriptions.
Okay, so they have the car, the proximity. What was the specific thing, the breakthrough, that really pointed the finger at him?
It was a combination of things, really leveraging modern tech and solid police work. Cell phone data was huge.
How so?
His phone essentially went dark. It disconnected from the network in Pullman, where WSU is, around 2:47 a.m. on the morning of the murders. Then it reconnected around 4:48 a.m., but way south of Moscow, near a place called Blaine, Idaho.
Implying travel away from the area after the murders.
Exactly, but what's maybe even more damning is that his phone pinged a cell tower near the victim's King Road house at 9 a.m. that same morning.
You go back.
It appears so. And not just that once. Records showed his phone had been in the vicinity of the victim's house at least 12 times between June 2022 and that November morning.
Wow. That suggests stalking, or at least a pattern of interest.
It certainly suggests a pattern that needed explaining. And then came the DNA.
Right, the physical evidence. What did they find?
They found 3 unidentified male DNA profiles at the scene, but the crucial one was found on a tan leather knife sheath.
Where was the sheath?
Left behind on Madison Mogen's bed next to her body.
And they got DNA from that.
Yes, a single source of male DNA.
Yeah.
And here's the real breakthrough. They used investigative genetic genealogy, uploaded that profile to public databases.
And it got hit.
A partial match suggesting a familial relationship that pointed them towards the Koberger family name.
So that narrowed it down significantly.
Hugely. Police in Pennsylvania, where his family lived, then managed to get trash from outside their home. They tested items from that trash. And the DNA profile from the trash was consistent with the DNA on the knife sheath. Specifically, the DNA profile belonged to the biological father of the person whose DNA was on the sheath, a near-certain link to Brian Koberger.
Incredible. And they were watching him in PA, too.
Yeah, pre-arrest surveillance. They saw him doing things like wearing surgical gloves outside, putting his trash bags into the neighbor's bins late at night.
Trying to avoid leaving DNA evidence.
It certainly looked that way. And meticulously cleaning his white Elantra inside and out.
All very suspicious actions, which led to the arrest.
Correct. December 30th, 2022, an FBI SWAT team and Pennsylvania State Police arrested him at his parents' house in the Poconos.
How did that go down?
They found him in the kitchen. He was actually wearing examination gloves at the time, sorting trash into separate Ziploc bags.
Wow. Caught in the act, almost.
Seems like it. A search of the house turned up a knife, a pistol, black face masks, and his ID card.
So Koberger himself, his background, we know he was studying criminology, which is ironic, I guess.
Deeply ironic. Born in 94, he went through an associate's in psychology, then a bachelor's and master's in criminal justice from DeSales University, then started his PhD at WSU.
And there were issues at WSU even before the murders.
Yes, that's a really striking detail. Apparently, faculty there had concerns about his behavior, specifically towards women. They actually met with him about it less than 2 weeks before the killings. And he was ultimately fired from his teaching assistant job on December 19th, 2022, just before his arrest.
Any known mental health history?
The sources mentioned diagnoses of autism spectrum disorder and obsessive-compulsive disorder. He'd also written online, years before, about struggling with things like tinnitus, that ringing in the ears, and visual snow syndrome.
Okay, so charges were filed. 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 of burglary.
Held without bond. He waived extradition, agreed to come back to Idaho from Pennsylvania.
And his plea initially?
At his arraignment in May 2023, he used a procedure called standing silent, which means he didn't enter a plea himself, so the judge entered a not guilty plea for him.
Standard procedure in some cases.
Yes, a grand jury indicted him that same month. And then in June 2023, the prosecution announced they were seeking the death penalty, citing the aggravating factors, the brutal nature of the crime, multiple victims.
But that changed recently, didn't it? There was a major development.
That's right. This is crucial for understanding the final outcome. On June 30th, 2025, news broke that Koberger had reached a plea agreement.
To avoid the death penalty.
Exactly. He agreed to plead guilty to all the charges, the 4 murders, the burglary. In exchange, the prosecution wouldn't pursue the death sentence, and, importantly, he gave up all rights to future appeals.
That's a big deal, waiving appeals.
Huge. It essentially closes the door on the case legally, preventing years, maybe decades, of potential appeals.
So he officially pleaded guilty.
Yes, on July 2nd, 2025, he formally entered guilty pleas to all 5 counts.
And the sentence.
Handed down on July 23rd, 2025, he received 4 consecutive life sentences without any possibility of parole, plus another 10 years for the burglary charge, also consecutive.
So he'll never get out.
Never. There were also fines, quite substantial, $250,000 total, plus $20,000 in restitution. It brings a legal finality, at least.
Yeah. And in the meantime, the community, Moscow. How have they been dealing with the aftermath? The house itself is gone now.
Yes, the house on King Road. It was donated to the University of Idaho, and they demolished it back on December 28th, 2023. A difficult but probably necessary step for many.
A symbolic removal of that site.
I think so. And they focused on positive remembrance, too. There's a memorial now, the Vandal Healing Garden, which opened on campus in 2024.
That's good to hear.
And scholarships have been set up in the names of Xana, Ethan, and Madison, so their legacies can support future students.
And the university recognized the victims, too.
They did. In May 2023, the University of Idaho awarded posthumous degrees to all 4 victims, Ethan, Kaylee, Xana, and Madison. A really poignant way to honor the futures they should have had.
So when you step back and look at this whole case, this deep dive, what are the key takeaways for you, for our listeners?
I think it's a really powerful, if tragic, illustration of the criminal justice process in action. You see everything from that initial chaos and fear through the painstaking police work, the critical role of modern forensics, like that DNA from the sheath, the cell data, and then the complex legal maneuvering that leads to a final resolution.
It really shows how intricate it all is, how many pieces have to come together.
Absolutely. It's not like on TV, right? It takes time, immense resources, and involves dealing with intense public pressure, and in this case, that wave of online speculation. It gives you, the listener, a real insight into how justice, or at least legal closure, is pursued in these incredibly difficult circumstances.
It's a compelling, though obviously somber, study in community resilience, too.
Yeah.
How a place recovers from such trauma.
Definitely. This deep dive really covers that whole arc from the crime itself to the investigation, the legal conclusion, and the community's efforts to heal and remember.
Okay, as we wrap up, here's something to think about. Final thought for you. In cases like this, so high profile, so emotionally charged, where the public is just desperate for information and answers, how do you strike that right balance between being transparent and protecting the actual integrity of the investigation?
That's a huge challenge, a really difficult line to walk.
And also, think about this. The shift from the prosecution seeking the death penalty to accepting a guilty plea for life without parole. What does that tell us about how we approach justice, especially in these incredibly tragic, high-stakes situations? Is the landscape changing?
That's a profound question. Definitely something worth considering long after this deep dive ends.